Hey, what's up? This is Zach here at the Genzio Media House with Min. Super excited to be here today. I'll let you introduce yourself, but how are you doing today?
Good, good, good. Thanks for having me. So my name is Min. I lead ecosystem at Algorand Foundation. I'm psyched to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we are so excited to be here with you too. And, Algorand has been a really long-term partner for us. We're super stoked for Decipher coming up.
Yeah.
So many great activations, events, and things really going on in the ecosystem. So before we kind of dive in, I'd love to learn kind of a little bit more about what that role really means and maybe a little bit about your background and how that kind of maybe informed how you lead in this position.
Yeah. So I've been in tech for almost all my career, and so I sort of approach this, and I've actually done big companies. I've launched my own startup. I've tried and failed to launch my own startup. And so I really approach this role thinking about, well, first of all, what does growing an ecosystem mean, right? It really means getting developers to come build on Algorand. And then it really means helping these developers be successful entrepreneurs. And then it really means helping these companies that they build reach, sort of takeoff velocity, right? That you want them to become really successful. And so I approach it from my experience in building products, my experience in launching new businesses and launching new products. It's about like thinking, helping them figure out how to be successful in growing their business and growing their products.
I mean, I think that's really important, and ecosystem support is really what helps developers decide where they want to build and communities where they want to stick around, honestly. How do you think Algorand differentiates itself in this way, and how do you kind of see your role in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part for anybody that's built a startup is the initial bootstrapping of it, right? And the initial bootstrapping just takes so much care. You need to really be thoughtful about how you start your company, what you're building, how you're going to get your first customer, how you're going to launch it. I think, and we know that that's the hardest part for anybody building in a newer ecosystem. And so the way that we approach it, and I think it's very unique, is the attention and the care and the support that we give founders and developers, and helping to make sure that they have what they need, not just financial support, but sort of this, we call it the bear hug, although I think now that we're out of the bear market, we need to rethink that name a little bit, but it's really kind of giving them the holistic support across everything they need to launch and bootstrap a startup.
I mean, I think that's really important because, I mean, we need companies to, build this industry. What kind of companies or projects are you sort of seeing built, and like, what are you excited about in terms of ecosystem projects?
Yeah, we have all of the fun DeFi projects. We have NFT projects, but we also have some really exciting sort of real world asset use cases on Algorand. So, one project that I'm sure some of your listeners have heard us talk about is Lofty, which
I was
is
gonna say, I love it's so cool.
they are
Yeah.
so great. And every time I talk to Jerry and the team, they're doing new things, So they started off doing, they basically fractionalize residential rental properties, right? So you and I can own a share of a property in Florida and get rental income. But they have now launched an AMM for these properties, these token holders. So you can now have a secondary market, if you, as a token holder. So they just keep innovating. Not only are they bringing like traditional ideas into the Web3 space and making ownership and, lowering the barrier for entry for folks like us, but they're also innovating on top of that. So I think like those kind of projects really get me super psyched.
I think that's really cool, and I had seen that online, and I think in their Twitter, and I think it's really really amazing what they're building at Lofty.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Can you talk maybe about why you think they decided to build on Algorand and maybe some of the, you know, key factors of the blockchain that make RWAs like a perfect kind of fit?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a couple of inherent aspects about Algorand that makes it really scalable for these kind of real world use cases. I mean, the finality piece, the speed, and the throughput, of course, makes it a very reasonable and practical choice. But for Lofty, one of the things that Jerry mentioned, I remember, was he said, when he started building on Algorand, it just it just worked. Like like even though it was a new language that the team had to learn. I think at the time it was still TL and PyTL. He just said that like once you sort of built the smart contracts, it just worked, and the network was just so fast. So I think everything about kind of how the sort of the how everything was just very it just worked.
I mean, that's the best way you
Literally
can
what he
ask
said,
for,
it just
right?
worked. Yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, that's kind of that's like when you pick up an iPhone or something, it just works, right? Or
Right.
good technology.
Right. It was just like there was nothing that, yeah, there was no concerns. And it was just great.
Awesome. And I think that's really, that's what you would want them to say, and that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Sort of in your role with the ecosystems, like how do you interact with, let's say, a project like Lofty? Like what's your sort of, relationship like with these companies, not only now, but kind of going back to the beginning, and how has it kind of evolved as the company
Yeah.
has grown?
Yeah, it has definitely. I mean, the role of the foundation and the relationship that we have with the projects building has certainly evolved over, I've been at the foundation now for a year and a half. And so it's evolved even during the time that I've been here. And I'd say, what we used to, as give grants to, entrepreneurs to build, and then we kind of let them go and and see what they can do. I think over the last year and a half, we wanted to play sort of a more active role, sort of in the trajectory of a startup. So, when a founder has an idea and they want to build on Algorand, we want to put them in touch with our DevRel team to really help them understand the best practice for building smart contracts, for minting assets, for building the infrastructure, for which tools to be using. And then once they've built once they've built the product, and then they want to now sort of test this product with users, we want to pull in our marketing team, pull in our communities team to really help them find sort of that product market fit for the product. And then once they have, the product in the market, our ecosystem success team really helps to make sure, hey, if there are certain incentives, certain ideas that we can do collectively across the ecosystem to help them even grow bigger, we would do that as well. So what we've learned is that it is hard to launch a company, in general, in Web 2, Web 3. And then it's even harder to launch it on Web 3 because it's new. And then it's even harder to launch on Algorand because we are a smaller ecosystem, right? And so I think what that indicates to us is we just have to be more active, throughout the process, and just be there to support these projects however we can. And then, of course, there's the financial element as well as, we have Algorand Ventures, which invests in startups that are building on Algorand as well.
Awesome. And it has that Algorand Ventures that has it invested in Lofty AI, for example, or?
Yes, we have last year. Yeah.
No, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And it's awesome because I remember, obviously we talked about this, I worked at OKX, and I did we listed Algorand while I was there.
Nice.
And I got to work with some of the team. And I remember I during the listing process, I got to do a bunch of research on Algorand. And one of the things I thought was really cool was sort of the real world aspect part of it, and that was back in like 2020. So it's like RWAs and DPIN, essentially before people knew what that was. It was that terminology.
Right. It was before we came up with the nomenclature for the terminology for it.
Exactly. Algorand was already doing that.
Yeah. Totally.
Had that kind of capability. So I guess kind of now, as you've seen a resurgence of DPIN, I guess it's always been kind of the branding. Like, how does Algorand sort of see that as like one of the original sort of proponents?
I mean, I think it was, it's so, we want to double down on it, but not because it's resurging, to be honest, right? It's only because we know that our technology is particularly well suited for something like this, right? I mean, where else can you mint, tens of millions of assets on a chain and not worry about how long it's going to take, how much money it's going to be, and whether it's going to break? And so I think we just know that our tech is very well positioned to help us win in this space. And we actually do have other projects that are doing really great stuff in the real world asset space. We have AgriToken, as you know, right, where we tokenized tons of grains. We have actually Travel X, which is, it's not a, we actually issue airline tickets as an NFT, right? So these things in the millions, I think we're now up to 7 million NFT tickets issued. And so the scale at which a lot of these real world sort of use cases require is one that I think we're just so uniquely positioned, to crush. And so we're doubling down in the sense that, we know this is an area that is unique to us. We're going to support as many projects as we can that are building in this space. And, we're not trying to jump on any trends or anything. It's just, it is where we think the future is going to be.
I agree. I mean, I think, and you've been leading that future for many years now. We saw the ad that came out, was very, very viral. Everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, if you're comfortable, maybe like the inspiration for that and sort of like the thought process?
Yeah. It is not quite my story to tell because this, of course, is, Mark, our new CMO, was sort of the brainchild behind it. But I can share a little bit of how this all started, which was it came from, it was inspired by Governor Hat. And then Governor Hat had this idea of like, how cool would it be to to do this idea of like a checkout with all these different assets that you try to pay, and then like they all try to fit and they all fail, and then you have Algorand come in and smooth sailing. And so we kind of took that idea, and then Mark, having done a lot of this stuff when he was at Google, had this agency that he used to work with, and he just put it together, and we wanted community members to be a part of it. John, of course, with all of his, his bashing of Solana, should be stuck in the Solana line. So I think it was a lot of these, it was just very organic how it happened. And I think what's beautiful about it is there's a big community component. We have Rich Flares that showed up on it, and it was really nice. And I've actually gotten messages from folks outside of our ecosystem being like, "Whoa," both good and bad, right? Like it certainly hit a nerve, and so like I've gotten some messages from people being like, "What is this?" But I think it's fantastic that people are talking about it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And it's fun. I thought it was funny. The more I watch it, the funnier it gets.
Yeah, no, and that's the whole point, right? It's supposed to be engaging to people, and it brings people in, and then they dig into the technology.
Yeah, and also, in our conversation about this whole Algorand is uniquely positioned to help these real world solutions scale. It's kind of a really good example of that. Like payments, you want that to happen instantaneously. You can't wait for it to fail. And so I think it's a great example of how we can really, how Algorand really shines.
And it is amazing to use the technology, even if minting an NFT or something like that, because it's instant. And we had that.
And it's final.
Yeah.
And it's final. You don't have any concerns about, did that go through, Yeah.
Perfect. We're at Consensus here, super cool, in Texas. What kind of is the plans for Algorand at Consensus? Like, why is the foundation here? What are you sort of looking to do?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been really focused on this year is one of the things that we're really focused on this year at the foundation is interoperability. Like, how do we make sure, we, of course, know what's so great about Algorand, but we also know that in order for us to be successful, in order for the projects building on Algorand to be successful, we have to be part of a larger ecosystem, right? And that's what Consensus is all about. All these new, fun, innovative projects that are building on, different chains, different tools, different protocols are here, and we need to figure out the best way to work with some of the important platforms out there, extend our ecosystem such that it makes our projects and our startups successful as well. So we really want to kind of just like meet with, the cool projects that are building here and figure out how we can work with them and really help extend our ecosystem.
Do you think, like, what are your experiences with the actual event, like, of Consensus? Obviously, we're a media partner, so
Yeah.
they share out a lot of our content.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think, I guess, Consensus has been so successful, or, building this kind of environment?
You know, this is only my second time at Consensus, but from what I've sort of seen, I think they do a really nice job of teasing out big, hard topics at the high level, and then they also create a lot of opportunities for individual sort of like communities to really get together and gather. And so I think they do a nice job of like the high and then the low together. So I think that's why, because there's always something for everyone, and I think everybody appreciates that.
Awesome. And I want to take it back to something you said a second ago. You said talk about interoperability, and that word gets thrown around a lot now. Can you explain really what that means to Algorand?
Yeah, it's both ways. So I can give you an example. So for Para Wallet, which is one of our biggest wallets, most used wallets in Algorand, we're doing a lot of work to make it interoperable with other wallets in the sense that the standards that we use, so BIP32 and BIP39, for example, are standards that all other wallets and other ecosystems are using, and therefore it makes it easier now for Para. Once this is not yet live, but it will be in the next couple of months. Once we adopt those standards, we can then add other, if we wanted to, right? You can add accounts from other chains and vice versa. Might be much easier for other wallets to then add accounts from Algorand as well. So to me, that's interoperability, because that means you make it easier for other ecosystems to tap into Algorand. Yep. And then that's on the product level. And then there are sort of things that we want to do, and Dave, who you're going to talk to next, is really focused on this as well, which is working with protocols that support Algorand and vice versa, right? How do we support sort of bridging and interoperability across various different protocols to make sure that our projects are able to work and sort of tap into the other ecosystems as well from a user base.
And just for the industry perspectives, why do you think that's sort of important for the advancement of Web3 and Algorand?
I think if we take that real world use case, real world, sort of use case being a big component of what Algorand is, at the end of the day, users aren't going to know or care what the technology is underneath, right? That they're of the tools or the solutions that they're using. So I think technology is almost going to be irrelevant. Like nobody's going to care if it was built on Solana or Algorand or Avalanche. But what they want is they want it to work, and they want it to work everywhere. And so I think that, what's the reason why interoperability is important is that in order for the technology to be working across, the reality is today there's so many different chains, there's so many different solutions, and like you have to have this wallet for this chain, that wallet for that chain, and that's just not going to work, right, for users. And so I think we just have to build a interoperable sort of layer underneath it, such that the communications across these different chains is smooth and it's intuitive, and it doesn't matter to the user, on the other side. And so I think that's why it's important from a usability standpoint. And then I just think, I think we can't, I think we have to embrace being connected with all the other innovation and all the other technology that's out there as an ecosystem, as sort of like philosophically, I think we need to embrace that, because we are ahead of the curve on so many levels with our state proofs and having projects that are doing real world assets. But we're not the only ones innovating, right? We know that, and there are others that are doing really great things, and so we have to be part of that.
No, and I think that's really that answers the question of how we bring Web3 forward, I think, really well. And I think that we really do need to work together to get this technology adopted. Kind of going into what's coming up next, we have Decipher. Super excited. Can you talk a little bit about Decipher?
Totally. So we're super psyched for Decipher. Decipher is what we're internally calling the retreat, a retreat for our builders. It is very specifically designed to bring everybody that is building on Algorand to one place together, share knowledge, but also share challenges. I think we're gonna do, and we're also playing around with the format a little bit. It's not gonna have a lot of panels, etc. It's gonna be a lot of workshops. It's gonna be very hands-on, because I think this is the year. I think now that we're coming out of this bear market, this is the year for us to really crush it and really build together and really grow. There's so much momentum starting with this, ad that you were just mentioning before. There's just so much buzz and so much momentum happening, and we really think that getting everybody together at Decipher is going to be the right moment for us to all crush it for the rest of the year.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there.
Awesome. I'm so excited.
I know. Yeah. I'm excited too. I've never been to Barcelona either, so it's going to be absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess, what do you see as some of the, I guess maybe the key moments that you're hoping will come out of Decipher for these builders? Like when they come home, what are you hoping that they take away, or sort of?
Yeah. One is a couple things. I just came off of a meeting where the Decipher update meeting. I came away being like, people are gonna get so inspired.
Oh, awesome!
Inspired by Decipher, because it is. Sometimes you're in the weeds and you're like, well, this is so hard, I can't do this. But when you step back and you just see all the amazing projects and the amazing conversations and the impact that these projects that are building on Algorand are having on the world, I think people are going to come away inspired. People are also going to come away with some real concrete kind of like, oh, I can really do this, and I'm going to try this. One of the things, again, back to this whole startup mentality, is you got to try. You got to put something out there, try, see if it works, and then know if it works, right? So, I want everybody to come away from Decipher being like, oh my gosh, they did this, we should try this. They did that, we should try that. Just like ideas for how to really kind of grow and crush it as a company. And then the third thing is, I think I want people to have fun.
Yeah, that's always a good KPI. Fun is a great KPI, I think, and should definitely. I mean, people love a good event. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. I really appreciate it. Make sure to follow all of Algorand's social media. We're going to be in Decipher in like a month and a half.
Yes, June 26th to 28th.
Wow.
Yes.
We're going to be here in like
so
a month.
Yes.
Or less. So thank you so much for the amazing interview. It was great to see you again, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.